I'm sure you've heard of the polar vortex, and that is the number one reason not to move here to Chicago. Add people that drive like they're in New York, and endless flat land, and really no one should live here. Let's get into the details. My name is EJ Horseman, realtor and investor right here in Chicago. Please reach out via the link in the description, and I'd be happy to help you find the perfect home. So let's get into the nitty-gritty of why you should never move to Chicago. Let's start with the weather. Of course, most of the year is bitterly cold. Well, at least November through April. The most brutal month is January, with average highs of 31 and average lows of 18. Not for the faint of heart. Literally, on top of all that is the snow. Sometimes your car can just get buried, and the sun goes away too. If you're from the West Coast, where it's always sunny, you're guaranteed to get a shock to your system. Okay, next up is the traffic. As is the case with most big cities, it's too many people in cars, and not enough public transport. You better get used to the train, because sitting on the highways in summer during rush hour can be brutal. Yes, summer brings in all the tourists, and kids are out of school. Make sure to plan ahead for any excursions with a car. And even though you'd expect Midwestern courtesy in Chicago, people say it's like they turn into New Yorkers once they get behind the wheel here. Maybe it's the anonymity. Crime is another top reason to stay far away from Chicago. If you move here, I really suggest not downloading any community-based apps like Nextdoor or Citizen, or you'll be flooded with notifications about carjackings, robberies, and other theft. I turned off all the notifications. Actually, you might just want to avoid the news altogether if you're living here. And no area is safe. Even neighborhoods like Lincoln Park, where I live, see their fair share of catalytic converters being stolen off of Priuses. Next up, I'll talk about the lack of nature here. It's totally flat, so don't be expecting any cool hikes or views here. Again, if you're coming from California, you'll be seriously missing mountains and real beaches. Plus, if you want to go hiking, you need to drive an hour out to the suburbs to some sad forest preserves where murderers hide bodies. Okay, that's a little over the top, but it is funny. But seriously, you're really in the concrete jungle here. Buses and cars expel tons of pollution, and there aren't many forests to suck it up. Finally, Chicago's expensive. Sure, it might be a little cheaper than San Francisco, but where isn't? Rents are going sky high now, and the cost of groceries and gas is climbing by the second. You gotta be rich to live here in the big city. Better have a job lined up before moving here is all I can say. Then there's the pricey restaurants on every corner. Don't have a job, have a well-paying job to survive here. Okay, so I know what you're thinking. If it's that bad in Chicago, why am I living here? Glad you asked. As I'm sure you can tell by now, I'm mostly exaggerating the downsides to the city. Sure, it's cold, but that's why you learn to layer up. And by that I mean undershirts and shirts, jackets, gloves, scarves, and wool socks. You dress for the weather and you'll be just fine. There are some nice things about the winter too. People generally get into more of a routine and things start to slow down. And when there's snow, it actually deadens the sound everywhere, and that's pretty amazing. And about the traffic, a lot of people live here without a car. They take the buses and the trains to get around and do just fine. Takes a little bit longer, but they don't have to deal with the parking and delays and car theft. Speaking of crime, it's a big city and Chicago has always had crime. Al Capone. Just take precautions to keep yourself safe. Don't wear headphones at night and carry a flashlight around as well. Mace is also an option. And in terms of nature, there are some great parks throughout Chicagoland. Millennium Park is awesome, and there's always the Lakefront Trail as well. And sure, Chicago is expensive, but it's actually cheap for a big city with world-class amenities. Even some of the best restaurants are reasonably priced. So after all, I would recommend moving to Chicago. If you enjoyed this video, I'm sure you'll love the one on screen. Feel free to reach out to me at any time for real estate needs, all links in the description below.